But so taking things now to the actual farmer level, and JD, you're obviously wearing a couple different hats here. I want you to be able to speak to, but you were really showing that that we can make these CI scores incredibly low, and we do see that this score of a negative 23 is legit, and we see a lot of scores in the negative teens, negative 20s. And so we know this one is it's not an outlier. It's not way out of line. We do see once in a while where we get outliers that are like negative 60 and stuff like that, which we throw those out. We know that those are not legit. But negative 23, I mean, that is humming and it's checking all the boxes, right? And JD wants you to speak to how'd you do this, but it's on the GREET model, which is where this score comes from. So this is from the 2023 GREET FDCIC or the GREET feedstock calculator. This There is a new USDA FDCIC that they made up, but this is with the actual GREET feedstock calculator. The big drivers lowering your score: no-till, cover crops, manure, good yields, and we're checking all the boxes here, and hence an incredible score. But JD, let me turn things over to you. Thanks for hanging out with us here today, and maybe explain a little bit more about the hats that you're wearing in your operation and your take on this whole CI thing.
Yeah. Thanks to Continue Mag for having me on today. And my soil health journey kind of started years ago when I was tired of bouncing across reels in the fields and stuff. And my dad was riding with me in the combine. He said, "Oh, we'll just stop getting these big rains and we'll be fine." And then 2013, I started doing no-till and cover crops. I saw the slate test. Some of those demonstrations really showed me what we're doing to our soil. With tillage, trying to solve problems, we were actually causing a lot of the problems. And so, I never dreamed I'd get my dad on board, but after 1 year of doing no-till and cover crops on my farm, then he started seeing the benefits, and now he's telling people, "Hey, yeah, these are the things that we need to be doing." And so I think for me, one of the big things, in the soil health journey is sometimes we get complacent and we say, okay, well, we're doing no-till and cover crops now, so we're good. We could just we've achieved, the goal of healthy soil. But I think, there's always things that we can do, always the next step. And so that's what Continue Mag has been able to help me
Yeah.
take a look and say, okay, here's where we're at. If we start adopting some of these other practices, if we start eliminating some of these inputs, then we can start to lower that CI score even further. And so, yeah, I also work for the NRCS. I'm a soil health specialist. And so being able to go out and work with producers and help them see, okay, I've got some of the answers, but then, Continue Mag is there to help further that knowledge and help them understand where some of the profitability can come from, I guess, because, a lot of times, we look at the soil health and we can start cutting back some of our inputs. But, for one example that I have a couple years ago, we're starting to see the biology become so active in our soils that now if we don't let the cover crops grow taller, they're disappearing. The
Mhm.
biology is consuming everything out there. So if we terminate before we plant, uh, there's nothing left a couple weeks after planting. It looks like we tilled.
Yeah.
So then we start letting those crops go, the cover crop grow taller. Beans, we've been planting green for several years, but corn, then we're like, okay, now's the next step. That's what we've got to start planting our corn green. And we had the first year that we decided to do it, we had a disaster. It didn't rain for a month and a half after we planted, and we had 3 foot tall corn and 6 inch tall corn right side by side. It looked ugly. I was like, nobody's going to want to do what we're doing after seeing this. Those soils, the resiliency that we built into those soils, by the end of the year, we were still one of the top 5 yields that we'd ever had on our farm, even through that disaster. And that shows me the resiliency that we can build up in that soil health.
That's awesome. And so, and guys, I think all of this, is shining back through exactly why I've been doing all this stuff, right? For the last, well, I've been running Continue Mag for 10 years, but now with the CI stuff and the soil health and all that and how that comes together, I think hits on it right. And I want to highlight it again that our mission at Containing Mag is to help family farms improve profitability via improving their soil health. And obviously, all you guys have just spoke to your own stories and how you're seeing that. And Jaden, you didn't really talk about your farm, but you're farming as well, and you're doing these practices on your own farm as well. And so all of us here seeing these things happen on our own farms, and it's okay. The Haney test is great and giving us some good results. We can manage agronomics and go on top of JD. You mentioned the Slake test. That's the one where you have the kind of cylinder of water, and you put a clump of soil in the top of it, and then the one that's tilled, it typically all falls apart. The soil that is has good aggregate stability, a good soil structure to it, it holds together. Just for people to hopefully you've all seen some of that. But this really shows, that the carbon intensity score and some of these programs are what's going to get more people moving the needle further, get people on the soil health journey. The flywheel starts to spin where, JD, to your point, the biology is just eating things up like crazy. You have to push things further or else you're going to have bare fields. I'm seeing the same thing. I know that Josh and Rick for sure seeing the same thing. I'm assuming up in Jaden's neck of the woods, they're far enough north that their biology is shut down for longer. It wouldn't be as big of a thing there, but eventually it still does occur. And especially in where you got more diverse rotations, you start this flywheel spinning and more people come to the table, and it's just going to drive the soil health journey further. And we were talking before here. Now I was just in DC here this week. I'm going to continue to be in DC a lot. And the Haney test or some of these soil health scores, I think folks in DC or consumers, policy people, they're becoming more aware of soil health, but they probably don't necessarily know what a lot of these practices are. And throwing a soil health score at them or a CO2 burst number at them, it's probably not going to mean anything. It's not going to resonate. It might be, okay, that's cool, but like, what do we do with that? And that's where I like having a carbon intensity score on it that now can directly mean something for policy and to move the needle in DC and to be able to move the needle with corporates and the top down where the money comes from to actually get more people on board of this. And that CI score or similar to a CI score can get more people on the journey. Then we can help them out with tools like a Haney test or a Slake analysis and simple things to actually implement the practices that drive your soil health score, your CI score. So it's here's your CI today. Let's implement some tools that are going to help to lower your score. Let's test your CI score again in the future. And it just continues to enable the flywheel to spin faster, faster, faster. That's why we're doing this, and why my quote in the space is that if they do get 45Z done well, the 45Z program will do more to I believe the 45Z program will do more to drive conservation ag management adoption than the Farm Bill programs. I think Farm Bill programs obviously tremendously important. And these Title II programs tremendously important, and we need to keep fighting for them. But to get that next wave of people coming on board and not having to be reliant only on Farm Bill programs, I think 45Z has the potential to do that and get people on this journey, get them to start seeing the outcomes. And I hope that eventually we don't necessarily have to have it being taxpayer dollars that pay for this stuff at the end of the day. And I don't know, Rick, maybe that's why I toss it back to you. I mean, you're the example of exactly what I just said there, that you're doing this and you don't rely on government programs anymore, but and can just kind of open this up too for conversations amongst ourselves. Obviously, the we dug in quite a bit there, so we only have like 20 minutes left. But it was really really good info. But Rick, maybe let me turn it back over to you. You've been you and I have been hanging out for a long time. You've been seeing this for a long time. Where do what's your take on all this here?
Yeah, I really admire what you're doing with the CI scores because you're right, Mitchell, that we have to get something in place that's going to move the masses.
Mhm.
And we all go to these regenerative conferences, these soil health conferences. We're surrounded by a bunch of people that are on our side, and it's all it's all hooray, hooray, hurrah. But we've got to figure out how to go out and move 100 million acres into these regenerative practices and get CI scores that'll pay them money. And yes, it's not coming from the taxpayer. So I truly agree. And then also to put behind that, Mitchell, it also goes back to what your company also is very good at is teaching. So we not only need that CI score capability, but we need teachers to teach the farmers how to acquire those higher CI scores.
I think that's spot on. And JD, let me toss that to you because you mentioned that a little bit. And my view here is obviously we have our folks in the USDA offices that are able to help drive this message. Guys like you that practice what you preach are actually out there doing it. But gosh darn, there's a lot of people that need this message, and I think it's that collaboration. And now this just enables more people to come to the table and not just preaching to the choir
Yeah.
like Rick talked. But JD, are you seeing some of that come through, or is that kind of how you're envisioning this happening as well?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Anybody that says, well, it's just one group can tackle this, it takes a collaborative effort. And so that's why, you've got the NRCS, Continuum Ag, any partners that we can come together and we share a shared message. I think that's where we really can move the needle.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's certain people that view an NRCS employee and they're like, oh, well, they're just, told by the government whatever to say. But yeah, being able to practice what we preach, like you said, and then working with other groups, having different people at the table to share that same message at field days and things like that.
Well, I think it gets us more of an outcome to strive for, right? Where, of course, at the end of the day, everyone's got to make money. We're running businesses here as well. But if an outcome is beyond just can we produce low cost commodities that then can go into a supply chain to just produce low cost food or low cost fuel, whatever, that's fine. But now we can actually do it in a more sustainable manner, a lower carbon footprint manner, or whatever the metric of the day is. And all this stuff takes data to get the stakeholders pulled together. I'll share a quick story there. I met with Congresswoman Marionette Miller Meeks's folks on Monday. And Congresswoman Miller Meeks has been at our Topsoil Summit multiple times. She's very much a champion for the farmers in this space, loves the soil health message, loves the CI message, been fighting for it. But what I shared with her staffer that I met with was just a quick little data point here that the national average CI score is 29.1, or the default score is 29.1. Continuum has scored over 350 million bushels working with folks like Farmers Choice and the rest of our network. We've scored 350 million bushels. The average score is 11.5. That's nearly a two-thirds reduction in farmers' carbon footprint already. And when I mentioned a little data point like that of farmers already doing two-thirds better than what the government gives us credit for, that's a talking point that a congresswoman like Miller Meeks can say, hey, I've got these guys that are fighting. They're already working for this. They're already showing that farmers have lowered their scores, lowered their carbon footprint by two-thirds. Like those are simple talking points that resonate with a lot of different stakeholders. She doesn't need to know exactly where did that 11.5 come from, right? The rest of us here, that's for us on the agricultural side to actually help to implement and teach people how to get to a 11.5 or even lower. Like on the Hollingsworth farm, or our score last year was a 2.6, or I mean, all the rest of you guys is two obviously super low scores. The individual nuances is great, but we can get some awesome higher level talking points to bring additional stakeholders to the table and hopefully drive some money for all of us as well.